how are you then differentiating yourself from everyone else who only says that they sell that product? It's a tricky line to walk because then you think, well, I've got to think of something original to be my differentiator. And 2-3 years ago, that was the buzzword. What's your differentiator? Put that on your website. And I always felt fundamentally it's not about being original, it's about being authentic. Because if you're trying to be something you're not, you're going to attract clients who are not your ideal client. And that comes back to your start of the strategy. Who am I talking to? How do I identify the ideal type of client that I want to work with?
Welcome to episode 26 of the Innovating Advice Show. I'm joined by Tim Slatter of Slatter Communications in South Africa, who specializes in working with financial advisors around the world on online communication and online branding. Tim and I start out discussing why and how advisors should communicate online. We also chat about the most and least important metrics you should be focusing on, where and how social media should fit into your overall strategy, and listen until the end, where Tim gives some free, specific advice on how best to leverage LinkedIn to build your business. It only takes a few minutes a couple times a week. For the Venn diagram Tim references, links, and show notes, hop on over to innovatingadvice.com/episode 26. You're listening to the Innovating Advice Show, and I'm your host, Kate Holmes, bringing you the global pulse on financial services innovation, featuring financial planners, financial advisors, and related professionals from all corners of the globe. Let's dive in. Ahoy, Tim. Welcome to the show.
Ahoy, Kate. Thanks for having me.
So where does ahoy come from? You are joining us from South Africa. That's not the traditional greeting.
It's definitely not, but I know I'm not the first South African to be on the show, and I thought, goeiemorgen or goeiedag wouldn't quite surprise anyone. Ahoy actually dates back to my teenage days. It's how me and my mates used to address one another and greet one another. And for us, it was quite normal, and I often greet people now. I say ahoy, and people are like, ahoy?
That's fantastic. I love it. So, Tim, we did our prep call the other day, and we're going to be talking through all elements of building your online reputation, from website to social media, everything in between. And we got into a few debates, and there were a few moments where I was uncharacteristically without words. You really got me thinking about a lot of things. And so, as we were talking, I want to take our listeners on that journey as well, and challenge thinking around why they should be building an online reputation, why they should care, and how to go about doing that. And let's start with, what is online reputation management, or ORM?
So ORM, as I typically try and explain it to people, is it's essentially public relations management, but specifically in the digital space. So where traditionally guys would look at the online space and their online brand, their online communication from a marketing perspective, ORM hones specifically inside of the public relations perspective and the management function that goes alongside that, which is obviously relationship orientated. It's not product orientated. It's not sales. It's not transactional. It's very much conversational. And our goal is to leverage online spaces to have better conversations. Whether, we've focused obviously in the financial planning industry and the advice industry, but ORM applies to any business online.
Perfect. Well, and I know one of the challenges, and I've had this challenge myself when I started Belmore Financial back in 2013, and I will admit I'm having this challenge again in building innovating advice. And it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole, to waste a ton of time and money. Do I build a sales funnel? Which website tool do I use? Do I hire a web developer? Do I pay someone for content? It can be overwhelming, and it's so easy to see why people don't go about it. But I'm now working with a business coach on everything, and we're really starting with kind of a vision board and making sure that I first build a business that fits into the life that I want. So before even diving into any of that online reputation management stuff, starting with that element of looking at, what am I even trying to build? So what would you say is the first step that advisors should be thinking about when trying to create a strategy?
So that's a great question, because a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of advisors, as their first step, they kind of just grasp to the closest thing that they feel comfortable with. And unfortunately, that's normally a Facebook page.
Ah.
And that's what they dive into. And it's not easy to build a Facebook page. I know you had a guest on recently who's done a great job of it. But if you're not strategic and you don't build community and you don't like being on Facebook, first and foremost, you're dead in the water. And then that creates this negative perception of online. And so we look at ORM as being a more holistic experience and engagement, which I think we're going to chat about a little bit later.
Yep.
But the first thing you need to do is one of three things. And my approach to helping advisors build their strategy is we break it into two areas. And the first area looks at three things. And it's you either need to first address what you're saying, or you need to address why you want to say it, or you need to address who you're saying it to. And the reason why I look at it from these three angles is because typically most advisors reach this point in their journey realizing they need to reevaluate their online brand quite a way down the line. Most advisors who come to us are not fresh out of studying and qualifications and starting a business. They are now relying on their own support, their own structures, and they kind of know what they want to say, but they've never thought about why they want to say it. They're only saying the what because, well, that's the industry telling them what to say. Or they know why they're doing this, and they know why they've come on this journey, and they've asked that deep question. As you've just said, now you've had to reevaluate, what life do I want to create for myself? And the reason why that's important is because 15, 20 years down the line, you need to look at yourself in the mirror, you need to look at your kids, and you need to say, this is what I've achieved. These are the relationships I've built. This is the legacy I've created. And whilst financial advisors are fairly good at helping their clients ask those questions, they don't always take the time to ask themselves that question. And so for me, at the start of the communication strategy side, that's where you have to start. Why am I wanting to communicate with clients? And then that follows on to, well, then who is that client? What does that client typically look like? And once you've addressed that as the first kind of step, you can then start to look at the platforms that you're going to use, frequency of communication, the type of content. But if you don't know who you're speaking to, why you're speaking to them, and what you're trying to say, the other three are really difficult to nail down and be successful with.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were chatting before, one of the things we were talking about is if what you're saying and who you're saying it to is all about trying to sell products, then
Yeah.
you probably, and I'll admit my bias and you're free to admit yours, you probably don't have the right why behind it. So it's also an
Absolutely.
opportunity to go take yourself on this journey of what's happening in the profession. And as you said, what is that legacy that you want to have 15 or 20 years from now? Because if you're thinking you're going to start a Facebook page and sell a bunch of financial products, well, that's not a very good why. And probably your only why is that you're in this industry to try to make money and not actually help people.
Absolutely. And that why is fundamental. And it's making it right or wrong is a trap that I often have to catch myself from falling into, and realizing neither option is right or wrong. But identifying what is authentic to you is important. And if you are a type of person who is inspired and encouraged and enthused and energized by sales and numbers and that kind of the game, then understand that that's the role you play in the industry, and realize that I think the industry is changing. The industry has been changing for a long time. You've been in it longer than I have. And in the last 6, 7 years that I've been working with advisors, I've seen a shift. And whilst the industry is changing, I think there is still space for traditional players who want to be in the product space.
Yep.
But their role is getting smaller, and I think their shelf life, I think it's fair to say, is diminishing. And those who are willing to explore the coaching space, who are willing to explore the lifestyle planning space, the life-centered financial planning space, and typically, again, I think as we spoke on Tuesday, those are guys who are in the maturer phase of their business growth and realizing, again, that word legacy, what does it look like? Because the products keep changing, the product providers keep changing the messages, but your clients don't change the why and who and what they really want to achieve in life. And if you can tap into that for yourself as an advisor, and that becomes your first step to leverage, you're then able to say, it's not so much about the transaction, it's about the conversation. It's not so much about the sales, it's about the relationship. And at the end of the day, it does need to be monetized. But if you can hook your value on what you're doing and why you're doing it, then that is where your clients will perceive the value. And so as you know, we stand at the moment, and I know this podcast will be played in time to come, but right now in the middle of the COVID crisis that we're facing, it's very apparent to people that they need to rethink some of their priorities and why they're doing things.
And that goes for advisors and clients. It's on
Absolutely.
both sides of trying to look at that. And this could be a good time for those that maybe are in a product space and now they're home now, they're not in the office every day. And, I don't know what kind of messaging they're getting. It's all turning virtual, but what we're going to be talking through in this episode really is geared towards those people that either are doing that goals and life-centered planning or that have been hearing about it for a while and starting to think, I agree, the industry and the world is shifting in that direction. What would that even look like for me to go down that path in building that online reputation management? And continuing on this start with why and thinking of Simon Sinek, why should advisors communicate online?
I spoke to two advisors this morning, actually, on a kind of a similar vein to this. And I was saying to them that over the last 15 years, the way in which we communicate has changed to more of a digital space. And it's not useful or helpful to take a traditional style of communication or approach to marketing and branding yourself and then just make it digital and just say, oh, well, I'm going online, but my strategy stays the same. The way that we communicate as people back and forth has now changed. So we're now living in an environment where not only have the media changed, but it has influenced our culture around communication. And that, I think, fundamentally is possibly the answer to that question. Why should advisors communicate online? Is because we're living inside of a culture today that expects it, accepts it, and almost in a way feels like you're wasting my time if you're not adopting one of those technologies. Even now with the virus and the global shutdown, people are realizing I have to do things differently. We're seeing it in all sectors. We're seeing it in education. We're seeing it in politics. We're seeing it in all businesses. And I think that is really powerful to show us that culture is changing. And because culture is changing, the way that we communicate has to change.
Yep, absolutely. And it is so interesting. And I'm always so torn. I mean, obviously, this is a horrible thing that's happened on so many levels, but it is good to keep in mind all the positives that are coming out of it already and that are going to continue to come out of it. And the innovation that we're seeing, and it's actually, I know we're all isolated, but I'm experiencing an increase in engagement with advisors all around the world, and they're increasing engagement with their clients. So there is a lot of good that's happening that hopefully will continue to happen. And that makes the online part even more important of how are people finding you? What are they seeing when they find you? So let's start with a website, whether you're building it from scratch because you have never had one, or you're starting a new practice, or you need to rethink it. What are the most important elements in terms of having a website?
So I think first and foremost, so in terms of our holistic online brand, we see, and I know you're going to share the Venn diagram and you'll see the guys looking at this, that the website's kind of the top circle. And I've always called the website the cornerstone of your online brand. And the reason why I did that was because a lot of guys would come to us and say, I've got a Facebook page, I don't need a website. And this might step on a few toes, I get that, but a lot of advisors are part of brokerages or franchises or larger umbrella organizations, and they're not allowed to have their own website. So they go, yeah, my company has a website, I don't need one. And the first thing to know about your website is when you're a financial planner or an advisor, you sit in front of the client. So you actually become the brand that the client engages with, regardless of whether you're tired, product, blah, blah, blah. You sit in front of the client, you earn their trust. They start to like you for who you are. That becomes your hook. So when you build a website, that needs to be at the start of the journey is who are you? Authentically, who do you look like? Not what colors does your larger company represent or the products you sell. We've been talking advisors out of adding product providers to their website for the last 3 years now. Guys will say, oh, I need Discovery logo, Liberty logo, and I don't know who you guys got over there. We've got contracts with these 16 companies, blah, blah, blah. And I say, but those companies have their own websites. You really want to promote them. And is the only value that you're bringing to your client the fact that you can sell them that product? Because if it is, then how are you then differentiating yourself from everyone else who only says that they sell that product? It's a tricky line to walk because then you think, well, I've got to think of something original to be my differentiator. And 2-3 years ago, that was the buzzword. What's your differentiator? Put that on your website. And I always felt fundamentally it's not about being original, it's about being authentic.
Yep.
Because if you're trying to be something you're not, you're going to attract clients who are not your ideal client. And that comes back to your start of the strategy. Who am I talking to? How do I identify the ideal type of client that I want to work with? Most advisors that I've ever spoken to have too many clients, yet they're still saying, I need to get more clients. Because they're stuck in the traditional model of the 40 plus saying, you need to turn business. You need to be productive and get more sales, etc. And they're going back to the product. But they're already struggling to facilitate the 500 clients they have, 800 clients, 1,200 clients. They can't stay in touch with them. And so part of our strategy was to say you build a website that speaks to you and engages with your clients. And in the last 18 months, one of the trends in web design in any industry has been how quickly can you get your reader to identify themselves in your website. And so when people look at your website, they can't just see you and your team at the top. And this is us, this is what we do. Because your client doesn't engage. The minute they start to see faces that represent them, questions that represent the questions they have, and solutions and answers that they are looking for, think they're looking for, that's when they start to scroll down and say, yeah, let's engage. And your website also only forms about 8 to 12 seconds of that initial trust factor, saying, yep, they're legit, they're not a fly-by-night, they're going to have a better conversation with me than the previous person had, I want to engage. Does that answer that question?
It does. And I want to have you repeat that, because this is one of those moments where I have my wheels turning. You said it's about how quickly your client recognizes themselves in your website.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
So it's not about, like you said, showing off you and this is all about me and let's just have it be the me page. It's about having your client connect and resonate with what you're saying and the value that you are able to bring them.
Absolutely. And if you see your website as a part of the 3 pillars of the brand, so I see a website as being your cornerstone, and then I see blogs and emails as being the place where you can start to spark conversations. And in social, I see as the place where you engage with those conversations. And they all work together to build your online brand. And so as your clients are engaging with all of those, they will start to find out who you are. And a lot of advisors typically are well educated and highly certified. And their education and certification is very important to them, and they want to flash that out there. And they want to have all the numbers and the letters after their names. And to a client, that doesn't really make a huge difference. There'll be a very small amount of handful of clients who really are going to say, are you a CFP? Have you got this diploma or this level of education? Most people just want to say, can I trust you? Who have you worked with that I know? Most clients come to a financial advisor through word of mouth referral. 80% generally of a financial advisor's book grows through word of mouth referrals. So the more you can build your online brand to reinforce what you are doing, not to replace you. That's something that financial advisors often overlook. They think, well, if I've got a website, I won't have to answer as many inquiries. I won't have to field as many phone calls, and guys are just going to fill out forms and I'm going to get clients. Again, their strategy is wrong. It's not about getting more clients. It's about improving the experience that your current clients are having and feeling like they can easily share you with their database and build that word of mouth referral.
Yeah, and there was a study that I saw come out, and I'll link to this in the show notes as well, that said, it came out, I think, yesterday, and it was something like 70% of clients, their most important element in working with an advisor is working with someone that deeply understands their goals and desires. Yeah, and that gets back to what you're saying is, speaking to that client and also linking back to what you were saying about doing it authentically. So it's not about doing it in a sales way. I see sales copy all over the internet in all different areas of industry that are doing that in just an incredibly salesy way.
Absolutely. It's about conversation, not transaction.
Yeah. So what are the least important elements of a website as advisors think, okay, do I need to focus on SEO? Should I be tracking my analytics and making sure that people are staying on my webpage and clicking on everything?
Absolutely. I think clicks to your website are the least important thing. And it's often the first thing we get asked after we set up a website is, how do I get to my Google Analytics page? And we say, well, we haven't set one up for you. I don't actually want to set one up. So can we have a quick chat about it? If you want to track stats, your email stats are the most important stats to track.
Yep.
We use a platform called MailChimp, which I'm sure a lot of listeners will be familiar with. I know there are lots of options. MailChimp has just been the one that we've been comfortable working with and has had the best performance from our perspective. And the stats, and we do training with advisors to say, how do you look at this online brand? We look at all 3 of those pillars in 3 different modules. And the second module looks at emails and blogs and how do you use those to spark the conversations digitally. And inside of the MailChimp session, we look at what stats do you look at. And what you want to know is who's opening my most recent email. Because generally your clients don't actually want to hear from you all the time. they need to know that you're present. So that's why we do monthly emails, just so that you're present of mind, not so that you're getting inquiries every email campaign that goes out, but that your clients know that you're there. So when they need you, you're available. If you are delivering a service that is value-based, that is experiential to your clients, you will be able to commoditize that based on client activity. So you don't actually need a high amount of client engagement. You need a high quality of client engagement. And so emails allow you to see who's opening my email and how many times are they opening it. And you'll know yourself, I do this as well. If you want to get back to someone, you mark the email as unread. And so you'll typically open someone's email 6, 7, 8 times before you actually respond to them. And you can track that through MailChimp. You can see, Tim has opened my email 8 times. I haven't heard from Tim. Let me phone Tim. Tim does want to hear from you then. He's either pissed off because you've said something or done something or haven't got back to him and he's been emailing your office, or he's needing to add a new beneficiary or up his this or change his job. But now when you're engaging with Tim, he wants it and he sees it as valuable, as opposed to trying to knock on everyone's door and say, it's a year since we last chatted, let's review this, let's review that, and building a sales base that way, which again has a shelf life. So your email stats are really important. Those are the clicks that you want. And guys also look at social media business pages as being kind of an important part that they don't have to focus a lot on. Your business page really just proves that you are legit. Especially on LinkedIn, it's to have the icon and say, I work for Static Communications. But you'll probably find, and correct me if I'm missing something here, but you'll probably find that most people engage with you directly. They don't really engage with your innovating advice page.
Yeah, and that's the way I'd prefer it, because like you were saying, it is about building more that personal brand. And Adele Martin back in episode 23 talked about that as well, and talked about even if you are working for a very large company, the importance of having your own website, ideally with your own name, so that you are building that brand and awareness, and that you can always take with you wherever you go.
Yes. And people Google you. So people will typically say, oh, go check out Tim Slatter. He's helping advisors. Go check out Kate Holmes. She's doing X, Y, and Z. They won't go and look for Slatter Communications. That's why if you go and check out our website, we don't do a lot of work there, because that's not where our clients are going to engage with us. And it's the same for financial advisors. The website is a cornerstone. It's got to be there just from a logistics perspective and a branding solidifying perspective. But you're not going to get loads of inquiries through your website. And so expecting that, you're not going to get Google search rankings very easily. People are going to Google your name and they're going to look for your name. And that's what needs to come up. So from an SEO perspective, it's your name has to be up at the top. As Adele was saying, you are the brand. That is the most important.
Yep. Unless you're like me, my full name is Katie Holmes, and that's just never going to happen. So
sure. I can see the
I can't beat out the celebrity. So I don't have a website with my own name. I admit I have not figured that one out yet. But what about for someone, let's say, that is listening right now that's thinking, okay, I'm ready to make the leap and I've been with a very large firm or product provider. Not a lot of people are going to be Googling their name. How do you leverage your online presence to build that awareness?
It's a good question. And again, it's because the holistic online brand is threefold. It's not just your website. It's not just what people are going to Google. It's also how you are engaging through email. And so the email and the blog side of things comes in there. And it's how you're being active on social. I was speaking at an event, I think it was in 2016. And I said, before you start with your online brand, you need to start offline. And again, it reinforces, it doesn't replace. So never underestimate the value of talking to your friends still, and your existing network and your WhatsApp and who am I chatting to now and talking to them. The goal of building a solid ORM and online brand is not to not have to speak to your friends anymore.
Right.
And to be out in the shops. And I know we're social distancing at the moment, and one day it will be lifted, going to networking events that are not just populated by other financial advisors.
Yes.
Going to network events that have people who are in the industry where you want to focus.
Yeah. Okay. So Tim, you've mentioned social a few times. So let's look at social, because that can be a massive rabbit hole on its own. There's,
Absolutely.
Now TikTok, I don't even know if Snapchat still exists. You've got LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. There are other platforms throughout Asia. I mean, it can be overwhelming. So should advisors be active on every platform that clients might be?
So no, I don't think there should be. I think you should choose one platform to start off with and start to get confident in that and see what the scope is for business growth on that platform. If it doesn't work, then go to another one. If you're confident with that and start building in another place, then you build up a second and potentially a third. The goal is not to become a financial planning celebrity, I don't think. You don't have to be everywhere. You just have to be where your clients feel they can get hold of you. I don't know if it's the older I get or it's how society is moving, but even myself and my wife, we don't enjoy going on Facebook anymore because we find it's a time sucker and it's so easy to get distracted. So we stay away from Facebook. So anyone trying to market to me and engage with me through Facebook is not going to be successful.
Yeah.
One platform that I feel is bridging the gap between social and the email side is WhatsApp. That is immediate and it feels like a messaging service, but it's also kind of a bit of a social service because you can create groups and you can do broadcast messages. But typically, if an advisor looks at social, you've got to come back to your why, what, and who am I talking to. But if you're in the product game, Facebook could potentially have legs for you. And even if that product is a program, for example, where it's a 3-step program, you sign up and you do this, it's $500 or it's $30 or it's free initially, and it's still product based, then Facebook is a great space for scalability. But if your value proposition is relationship based, in our experience, Facebook is going to be dead in the water. If you're currently busy on Facebook and you've got a great community, it's also where your community is. If your community is on Facebook and you're engaging, then stick there. But if you've been trying to get a Facebook page to work and you're not getting any business, then my recommendation is start exploring LinkedIn. The reason why, specifically in South Africa, I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, but in South Africa, I find people are more honest on LinkedIn around their qualifications and their experience. And they are more, I don't want to use the word dishonest, but maybe more liberal with their descriptions and their conversations on Facebook. And so when you're trying to target someone who is affluent, someone who is discerning, someone who has a certain type of education, someone who has some kind of degree or work experience, doing that on Facebook for South Africans is really difficult to target the people correctly. Whereas on LinkedIn, it's very easy to start engaging with teachers in your local area if that's who you want to work with. It's very easy to engage with professionals inside an area that you want to niche. So you can start to build that network. And then what you're doing is on your LinkedIn, there's a lot of advisors that I've been connected to are just connected to other financial advisors. And then they say LinkedIn doesn't help them build their business. It's because they're using it to build their own education and their own understanding of trends and compliance and legislation in the industry. They're not building it to build a client database. And the minute you change that focus to saying, how do I strategically connect to people who might be clients, who might know clients that would want to work with me, you're not going to be leveraging it and getting any business growth. So our kind of focus, first and foremost, is look at LinkedIn. You've been quite active on LinkedIn. I don't know what your experience has been, but
I work with other advisors, so
yeah, and I target advisors too.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place for that because that's where you and I met. It's how a lot of it has happened, and I do find that people are very friendly on LinkedIn. And there is that desire to share information and to help each other, and it's a very positive, supportive community. And I agree. I don't really get on Facebook anymore. I stopped Facebook, 6 years ago. I just find it exhausting and unnecessary. And I don't have a desire. Yeah, I just don't have a desire to be there. So I don't put a lot of effort into it. But one of the things you mentioned was kind of in building your page and, if it doesn't work. Well, I don't know that advisors are the most patient people. So what is that time frame that you suggest giving people, regardless of what platform it's on? How long do you give it to see if it, works or if you should abandon?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I think generally with all kind of digital communicators, we all agree that it's a good 6 to 12 months.
Yep.
It's not overnight. If you're expecting anything to happen in 3 months, that's very optimistic. And I kind of feel that if you've got your why, what, and who correct, and then you've gone through the what, where, and when, and so where am I saying it, how often am I saying, what kind of content am I sharing with people? Once that is in the bag, any strategy that you employ for 6 to 12 months will start to be successful. Too many people
you really do have to be patient, and that's a big part. And that is not easy. And again, especially thinking about those people that are just starting out that don't necessarily have their client book already built. So they don't have that email list already built. They don't have people that they can easily engage with. It is a long process. Time does fly. It doesn't feel like it right now. It feels like time is not moving at all.
In January 2016, I decided I was going to niche into the financial planning sector. And I went on a premium package on LinkedIn, and I just built a database, and I just connected every day. I sent out about 100 invites to financial advisors. So I must have sent out, 20, 30,000 invites. And I'm only connected to about 5,000 people. So a lot of people will never respond, and that's okay.
But how did you do that? Because I want to touch on that first, because I ignore a lot of requests on LinkedIn, and the amount of people that are trying to connect with me to, like sell me leads or something. I don't know. I ignore and block all of them. And I feel like there's a lot of spammy people on LinkedIn. So, let's pause on that for a moment. Did you write them a personal message when you would try to link, or was it just a standard link request with no message or anything?
Shot in the dark and a prayer.
Yeah.
So 4 years ago, it was a shot in the dark and a prayer, because less people were using that platform in the way they are using it today. Our advice now in our LinkedIn training session is every invitation is targeted, and it's a personal note to that person.
Yep.
And it's to say, I'm building my network of this type of person. So we've helped a planner in Polokwane, for example, build her database. And we said, we're connecting with small business owners in Polokwane. I'd love to have your input in my network. It's personalized. My process for that is you do between 10 and 30 a day. And that's because LinkedIn gives you 10 options. So you define your search criteria in LinkedIn. You'll say it's a second order person, obviously not a first level. You'll say which area they're in and what qualifications or title they might have, so that you can target that person. And then you go, Dear John, and you write, I'm connecting. So you copy and you paste the I'm connecting, but you personalize the Dear John, Dear Mary, etc.
Yep.
And even in doing that, you won't get 30 people replying. You might get 7 reply on the first day. You might get none the next day. But every single day you commit to doing either 10 or 30. And in my mind, it's just because I like the laws of threes. So you either do 1 page or you do 3 pages of 10.
Yeah.
And that literally takes you like 4 minutes. So now your brain is like, sure, I can build this net. I can do this. And slowly what will happen is over months and months and months, you'll start to have hundreds of people that you're connected to who are qualified in the area you want to work with, who live locally and could meet up for coffee, and are connected to other people similar to that. That's how you build the LinkedIn network.
But then what? Because if you just connect with them and you're connected and then you never go on LinkedIn again, that's not an ideal strategy.
So in our training, we look at 3 things that you've got to do when you go on LinkedIn. The first thing you want to do is, and this is some free advice I'm giving out here. First thing you want to do is create content. You have to be creating content.
Yep.
And so part of our value to advisors, we create blogs for them, and they can use those blogs as social media shares. The second thing you want to be doing is engaging with your network. So you have to then go through the little red dots at the top of LinkedIn and see who's liked, who hasn't, anyone who's commented, thank them for their comments, engage with them. Go through your own timeline, like some other businesses' things. People love to get likes. The minute they're like, oh, Tim liked this. Tim, what does Tim do? They might start engaging back. And again, it's not a quick pro quo. It doesn't happen immediately. It goes up and down. But if you're engaging with people, they will start engaging with you. It's proven, it will work. And the third thing you want to do is then strategically build your network. And that's where you do the 10 names a day or 30 names a day. 3 minutes, 3 times a week. Because everyone thinks, sheesh, I can do that when I'm on the loo, which absolutely you can. So in the first minute, you create content, which is typically sharing a blog from your website. The second minute is ticking off all the boxes and who's liked stuff and just replying to people. And the third minute is strategically building my network with a few more people every time I go on. And if you've got that approach on LinkedIn and you run that for 6 to 12 months, you will be getting clients. You will be getting better quality referrals. You'll be having a more fulfilling experience. And that's ultimately what it's about. It's when I go onto social media, I come off feeling like, sure, I'm glad I did that today.
Yeah.
But if you come away from it thinking, yes, I watched too many cat videos, that was such a waste of time, then,
I mean, unless they're good cat videos, there's some funny ones out there.
Good cat videos, if they're share worthy, then it's a good time. Absolutely.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
I like that. And then, I mean, also making sure not just to reply to people that liked you, but to actually go on and find opportunities for you to be liking and commenting on stuff that's out there so that people can see that you're not just using it as a selfish thing of just, hey, I'm waiting for everyone to come to me, but that you're actually being positive and providing value in commentary of stuff that your target market is posting.
Yeah. And you said this a few minutes earlier. You said about guys on LinkedIn just want to be helpful. And that's absolutely a positive approach to have, is saying, how can I connect others? You know, you're looking for this kind of person. Well, you guys should meet. You should hook up, because you guys have got a lot of value to add to each other. And especially now, as we're going into global recessions around the world, and guys are looking for opportunities, guys are trying to be innovative, financial advisors are uniquely posed to connect people together. I've seen, I've got a client who's just designed this new product and it will work great in your store. Or I've got a client who's now upskilled and they can provide the service. They can write blogs for your website. They can do a logo design for you. And now you're helping out two of your clients. You're not doing any sales, but you're adding value. And that's where the PR side comes in, the online reputation side comes in, that when I deal with Kate, I believe there's going to be value in it. If I engage with Tim, there's going to be value in it. That's what you want your clients to perceive, not they want to sell me something.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So we do have lots more to discuss. So Tim, I think we'll probably have to have you on again to revisit some of this, to look at email, to look at blogs. I think videos are definitely coming up. So in our last minute or so here, as we're talking about technology, what apps or software tools sort of bring you the most efficiency in your day-to-day operations?
So for us, we use the Google suite of documents. So Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, and Google Drive. And the way that really helps us is we were kind of already set up as a satellite office concept before social distancing. So being able to work in live documents, especially when you're creating content and creating content schedules, has been very useful for us. As a free tool, I can have writers working on different projects. I can easily have updates to schedules that I can then share with clients. And people can make live changes to those. Because when you're creating content, the lead time now to publish is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You can't be working on a blog for 6 months.
No.
You actually need like maximum 2 to 3 days to get a blog out there. And in a time of crisis, even that is too long. So the pressure to get content, share content, especially if you're trying to create content inside of your own office and you kind of maybe got 3 or 4 planners and you're all contributing. If you know there's a schedule, everyone can hop on and see when is theirs due, how many words, links to get to, etc. That's really useful. We also use a tool called Asana for project management. There's my dog. And in terms of video, there's 2 great apps. So on an Apple, I use something called Clips. And that's really cool for doing quick selfie type videos with captions in it live. It's a little tricky to edit it because it's on your small screen, but I use Clips if I want to do something quickly. And I use another app called Capwing for online captions. Again, they work really nicely for 3-4 minute clips, 2-minute clips. If you're going to be doing a 30-45 minutes episode like this and you're trying to caption it through those platforms, it's a nightmare. But typically, if you're trying to, as an advisor, get out there and just say, here's a quick tip that I want to share with you as my clients, and I want to put it out there. Because having video with caption is far more powerful than having video without caption. Most people scrolling through social media don't actually have sound on, or they're in a social setting and they're trying to scale and piece, look on their phone. And if they can quickly just see what, the ticker tape saying at the bottom, it's much easier.
Agree. Great. Well, I will connect to those in the show notes. I've got your LinkedIn connected in the show notes. So definitely recommend that advisors connect with you. You are always putting great stuff out there. And I think you're a great example of what it looks like to be present on LinkedIn and building those relationships and putting out good quality content, and then linking to your website so that advisors can see what you do. But you work with advisors all over the world, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So as advisors are home thinking now, hey, it's a perfect opportunity to revisit how we are being present online, how we're building those relationships, what our website looks like. I think you'd be a great person to reach out to. You, as you said, are doing it all virtually now. So you work with helping advisors on figuring out that why, on building the website, the social media, the blogs and emails, really that entire suite of online reputation management.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, good. Well, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave advisors with, or things to contemplate as we are all at home now thinking about what we should be doing online?
Don't be afraid to ask yourself hard questions and take a journey of introspection. It's something I've been doing with my wife for the last few years now. And it's the kind of thing that it's scary to do. And when you're in it, you're thinking, why didn't I do this 15 years ago?
Yes.
if you're willing to ask yourself hard questions, you'll be willing to ask your clients hard questions.
Perfect. And that's where that value comes in. Like you said, It's not
Absolutely.
about being a protector of information. It's about providing that value.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Innovating Advice Show. I would love to hear from you directly about what resonated, what didn't, and what you'd like to hear in future episodes. You can connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram at Innovating Advice, or hop on over to innovatingadvice.com. Till next time.